my name is Paulo Manso de Sousa, and one of the questions I often get asked is why Southern Art Dance? Why Georgia? Um, I don't know. I came to visit. I was living in Portugal and was happily working. I had a little company in the north of Portugal called Aveiro. The town is Aveiro, and the company was Theater of Dance of Aveiro. And came to visit my brother. He was living here, working for the airlines. And I actually loved the state. So we talked and we thought, we're getting older. My family's getting older. It's time for us to come together since we've all been all over the world and we were like gypsies. So I sold my house in Miami after I left Miami City Ballet. And so I moved to Georgia. I was teaching at Atlanta Ballet and I was teaching at some local studios. But I found that there was something missing, something with my own integrity, something with my own voice. And so that's what I decided to do. I played around with the name, like Southern Arc, Southern. I wasn't really crazy about it. But with dinner with some friends, one of them said, this is called the Southern Arc of Atlanta. And I thought, you know what? I like that name. I'm going to use it. So that's where Southern Arc Dance came from. Southern Art Dance Center is a building that I'm very passionate about. As I was growing up, there was always all my training and people that I admired. There was always a diversity, and a lot of collaboration, a lot of different inputs to make one project work. One of the first schools or groups I worked with was Oakland Ballet. And Oakland Ballet was remarkable. It was directed by Ron Guidi. And he had been influenced by the Ballet Russe era. He grew up with that. In fact, one of our teachers had been a young dancer with the old Ballet Russe in Monte Carlo. And so Ron would bring these amazing, historic people to come and work with us. We were 13, 14, 12, different. We were kids learning. But I got to work with Massine. I got to work with Anna Sokolow. I got to work with Eugene Loring, who did Billy the Kid, which later on was brought into Broadway, Oklahoma. Agnes DeMille kind of copied Eugene Loring and created Oklahoma. So I had a really rich youth of dance. Then I decided to go to New York. I needed work. So I auditioned for different things. And one of the auditions was the Met Opera. They were looking for dancers to dance in the operas. And of course, out of 200 people, there were only 2 boys that were hired. It was myself and another boy who was completely different than I, tall, blonde, Nordic looking. So it was an interesting process and wonderful experience. I got to work with Carmen and Rigoletto, Eugenio Onegin, so many Aida. There were so many operas that had ballets. One of them was the Le Patineur that came out of Le Prophète. And I had a solo there, so it was great. One of the conductors, in fact, music director Jimmy Levine used to come and watch me from the wings. We actually became really, really good friends. He is the one that told me, if you're going to have a dance career, you need to leave the Met, because here you're always going to be a background dancer. You might have a solo here and there, but you're always going to be a background dancer. In the opera, the main focus is voice and opera. So that's what I did. I left. As I'm taking class, I met Edward Villela, who became a great mentor and coach and teacher. And he took me into his kind of wing. He introduced me to School of American Ballet. I had a scholarship, so I was able to take some classes while still working with Edward. Edward had this group called Edward Villela and Dancers. And what he did is we did a tour. There were like 3-4 dancers. Edward was still dancing at the time. And he would talk about his career. He would talk about his relationship to Balanchine, Balanchine's development of dance, Balanchine's way of working, him inspiring dancers to create his ballets. It was a collaborative thing, even though Balanchine was creating all these steps. He was doing it individually for each individual dancer. So it was a great, great experience. And I got to dance his roles, which was Tarantella, which I loved, coached by Edward. He even used to do my makeup sometimes. Bugaku, Rubies, Who Cared, so many ballets. So after I left Miami City Ballet, I went to Europe. I wanted to follow up with my roots. I wanted to see what European dancers were doing. I was always inspired by their aesthetic, their ideas, their concepts, their innovation. So I went to Portugal, which I had family, I could stay, and I ended up teaching at the National Conservatory, which is a Vaganova school. And then I was there for 3 years, and I wanted to keep growing, so I took the directorship of a company in Aveiro. And I was there for 2 years before I moved to Atlanta, which backtracks to where I started this conversation. So I was teaching different places, teaching at Atlanta Ballet, teaching at different studios, and I wanted to create something with my own integrity. Bringing in all this integration, and it's about educating dancers, not only teaching steps, but really educating dancers. Dancers don't just do steps. We understand our bodies. Our bodies are our instrument. If you're a violinist, you need to understand how the strings, each string sounds, where your hand is on the neck of the violin, and the bow as well. With any instrument, anything, any sport, the better you are, the more you understand your body. So that is what I'm interested in training. Of course, not everybody's going to be a dancer. Not everybody's going to be a principal at New York City Ballet or, Atlanta Ballet, wherever it is, San Francisco Ballet or Paris Opera. But you will understand discipline. You understand commitment. You understand that you have to work for something. You understand your body, poise. You get a certain poise, a certain self-esteem working. We're a non-competitive space. We do a lot of performances, like what I did when I was a kid. I was performing with professionals very early on, doing the roles that fitted my age, my talent at the time, until you get to do, from Fritz to in Nutcracker till you become the Cavalier. And then after a while, you become Drosselmeyer. So there's always an evolution of the dance. I'm very passionate about Southern Art Dance, again, because of what we do and what we stand. We teach all the disciplines, like most places. We have ballet, tap, jazz, hip hop. We have modern. We even have a global dance. The gentleman, Sean, who's teaching modern, during COVID, actually spent his time going back to his roots. He's got roots in Hawaii and Filipino, so he wanted to go back into that. So during the COVID, he was actually taking courses from Netherlands Dance Theater, from San Francisco, from Alonzo. He was watching from Alonzo King. He spent the time basically studying. So when we started back in August, he said, I'd like to experiment and do a global dance class. So we have that, and I think the kids are enjoying. They get to learn techniques from world dancing. And again, it's all incorporated. Choreographers today come in with an idea of movement and what they want to express with the movement. So the more languages your body has, the more you're able to express. So let's say you take ballet and hip hop. Well, that's a wonderful combination, because then you know how to break and separate your body, as well as you can move poetic and soft and gentle. Same thing with tap, same thing with jazz, same thing with acrobatics. It's all very incorporated right now. But with all that, we emphasize safety on the muscles. Again, training dancers to understand their body. Pain is inevitable. Muscles are inevitable. Like, you're going to pull, you're going to stretch, you're going to have things. Joints are the things we need to always be concerned with, and we always ask the students to tell us, and we can know if it's a joint or if it's muscle. Muscle repairs itself and heals and can make joints can be a little more trickier. So we always have to be careful with joint injuries. And basic clean technique. We're teaching actually technique, not just steps. There's an order to the steps. There's a way to execute the steps. It's not just lifting the leg, but it's how you lift, how you use the muscles, how you train the young dancer to understand the usage of the feet, the bones before they get on point for the girls. Now boys get on point. So for the dancer to get on point, stretch, long lines, the back, the neck, the pirouettes, all that, jumping, how to land safely. So the leg, the joints are aligned, your knees over your foot and your hips over your, everything is placed. So I'm really passionate about that. The other two things is we really try to reach out to the community. So we have a class for children with special needs. We call it Dance Without Limits. Originally, when I started it, I was thinking of kids in wheelchairs. We haven't gotten one, but we had all the other spectrums, which is really exciting to see in class and different ages. And I grow with that too, because you come in with the concept, I'm going to make them do this and this, and they have a life of their own. Each student has their own idea, and it's kind of an exciting class. The other one is Dance for Parkinson's, and I worked with Mark Morris. They have a program for, it's called Dance for PD. They're one of the developers of Dance for Parkinson's. They've done a lot of research. And it's interesting to be working with people with Parkinson's. There's different things. The tremors were it's obvious and we always see it. But there's another thing which is freezing, and also muscular facial stuff, which inhibits or prevents you from speaking properly or with the clear diction. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating for people who have Parkinson's. For instance, if you have tremor, the tremor doesn't stop. You know how tiring that is? While you're sleeping, you're still tremoring, or if you're walking, all of a sudden you freeze and you can't move. It's really frustrating. So the dance class addresses all these things. And it's interesting to see somebody that has tremor through movement. All of a sudden, the tremor slows down because they're concentrating on the energy of the movement, like playing with sand, just moving sand around, right? Or using taffy or clay. And so all of a sudden, you concentrate on what you're doing, and the tremors become less. It's not a cure. It's not therapy. It's part of therapy. Unlike therapy where you do constant 3 sets of this and 4 sets of that, this is with music, it's movement, it's much more creative. So again, it's body-mind connection, body-mind conscious. So that's the building, that's the school. Artistically, what I love is collaborating. One person can't do it alone. And I learned this very, very, very early on from that whole 21st century, the turn of the 21st, 1900s to that early period where artists were collaborating, and you get so much more. I'll come in with an idea, but then if you're working with another creative person, they come in and they add their idea. So that's another notch. Somebody else comes in and they add another layer to it. So before you know it, you have this whole process. It's like a little flower that opens, and you've got all these different elements to make it work. And even after you've dissected and planned and had conversations and worked out, it still evolves until the very end. And in performances, it still has an evolution. Even though once the choreography is done, the project is finished, in performance, it still has its own evolution because each dancer takes it on. And it's like, I guess, like giving birth. I've never given birth. I don't think I ever will. But I would assume that You work and work and work, and then all of a sudden it has a life of its own, and you can guide it, but you can't really control it. It's going to do what it's going to do. That's exciting. Again, collaboration. We collaborate with musicians, local musicians. We collaborate with painters, with sculptors, with local dancers. When I started this, actually, the idea was really to have a performing company, not really a school. The school just was an evolution. To have a company, you need money. You need support. You need to pay these dancers. They work hard. This is their job. This was my job. I worked every day. I was paid a salary, so much per week. It was great. I loved it. So we don't have that budget yet. We're working on it. So we can have, let's say, 5, 6 dancers on hand, and we come in. We have a company class where we warm up. We work on technique, all those things we talked about earlier. And then later in the day, we work on choreography and start to create a rep. Once you have that, then you can do more performances and you can tour it. It's very exciting. We don't have that at the moment. So right now when I work on projects where we have a season now, I have a performance in April that's pretty much set, and that's a more contemporary. It's not a story. It's not classical ballet. It's a combination of different things. It's much more experimental works, but still with a very rich integrity of quality and giving the audience something that they can appreciate and feel good about seeing. So with this collaboration and with our schedule, we have a performance in April, which is that mixed program. We do an Arts in the Park that we've started, and that's again to bring young choreographers and young dancers. We had a grant the first year. We've not been able to get that grant since then. We keep applying, we keep trying. But what the festival is, when I was a kid, when I was dancing, one of the great places that I loved performing in was Ravinia. Ravinia it's a beautiful festival in Chicago, and it has this beautiful amphitheater. It has a seating area in front of the theater, but then behind it, it has this huge lawn. And I was so impressed because people could buy tickets for the seat, or you could buy tickets for the lawn. I liked the lawn better because people would bring these elaborate picnics, and they would sit there and they would hear the symphony, or they would hear the opera. The ballet, of course, is more difficult because you hear the music, you don't see it. So you would have to get seating. We use Greenville Park. I wish that the stage was a little bit bigger, but we make it work. And it's free to the public. People come in, they have a picnic, and they get to watch different performances. We have musicians, we have poets, we have dancers, of course, and then on the sides of the park we have artists painting, and they can sell their artwork. It's really exciting. This year we're probably going to have food trucks. We had to cancel last year due to COVID, but we're pushing it for this year, and I'm at the process of looking for dancers. We have the end of the school year performance, which is no professional dancers. It's just the students. But that we usually do a full story, and each class gets to perform in that story. We do Dracula in October. That's the professional dancers that I hire and we bring to come together. And every year, because we do it, it's now going to be our 3rd year, our 4th year doing it, there's always a change. Same thing with Nutcracker in December. It's going to be our 6th year doing it. And I always add something different. I always do something different. So it's interesting for the audience. It's traditional, but there's always something new. So that's what we do. We create a space where people can feel free to express, and there's no judgment. Everybody's welcome. We have different sizes, we have different ethnicities, we have different, male, female, everybody. We're all included here. It's a free space for people to come and experiment and grow and have a great time.